And then she says, "Oh, yes, I forget. I'm a white racist bigot who wants apartheid because I'm white." Really? No, not really. Are you fucking serious? I didn't say any of that shit. I was I was honestly sympathetic to this and honestly going to look into all of this. And then you start this shit. Are you fucking serious? So I talked about South Africa recently. Donald Trump invited a bunch of quote unquote refugees into South Africa, right? And I talked about how there isn't a white genocide happening there as claimed by, far right nutcases in South Africa. It's just far right propaganda. And we started seeing things like this come out of the South African refugees, quote unquote. Jews are untrustworthy and a dangerous group. They are not God's chosen, like to believe they are. Where is the temple that must be their concern? Leave us alone. We all believe in God of Abraham, Moses, and Jacob. I'm almost said something ugly. You didn't say something ugly already? Anyway, these are the South African refugees, quote unquote. Trump is literally sending refugees to concentration camps in El Salvador and bringing in these people. And his weird little cult of followers, Donald Trump's that is, are like preaching. They've worked it into their Trump theology, bizarrely. This is Shane Vaughn. He is a Trump theologist. I don't mean like he loves Trump. I mean he is a pastor in the Trump church, effectively. Listen what he had to say about this. Didn't give a shit about South Africans before, suddenly gives a shit about South Africa.
And I'll tell everybody, and I'll say it everywhere I go, the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The most, not racist, but marginalized people in America is white men. That's a fact, brother. We are the new minority, if you will.
He doesn't look like he's fully white. He looks like maybe he's white passing, but he looks like he's kind of Central American to me.
Because we literally, and I don't mean that as a racist statement, but if you're a white man, you get no rights, no privileges, no consideration in this nation anymore. It's been taken over by DEI.
This is just insane, dude. This is the kind of mindset that is taking over the Trump theology at this point. Well, I covered South Africa, and I get an email from somebody, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's very long, but I read it. Okay, I didn't have to sit here and read this 16-page like manifesto that this person wrote, but I chose to because the person sounded nice and honest. So let me just read a little bit of the beginning here. You get an idea of what I'm talking about. Heather starts out telling us her story or whatever, right? Hope this finds you well. I never comment on the internet on any topic, but this needs to be addressed. I'm a 50-year-old English-speaking South African hairdresser. I live in Durban, KZN, in the most beautiful place on earth. I can't even bring myself to watch your video. I've read the comments. I can see which way you're taking all of this. Well, I would appreciate it if you watch the video first, but okay, I understand this is a subject close to your heart. Let me just, we'll keep reading. You did such an excellent job on Hitler, and well done on your researched book. And well done on your well-researched book. Thank you. I appreciate that. You need to understand South Africa and what really is the crux of the problem here. Let me tell you a bit of the last 32 years of our history.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
I told the history a little bit in the video, but for people who don't know it, it's basically just in the 90s, all the way up until the 90s, they were an apartheid state. Like black people and white people were banned from being together. You'd be sent to jail if you were in an interracial marriage or you had a kid with your interracial partner. Up until like 1994 was very, I already went through all of this in my previous video, so I'm not going to like rehash everything, but just if you didn't see the other one, South Africa until I think 94 was a fully apartheid state. You'd be put in prison if you had a kid with a black person if you were white. No interracial marriages, no relationships of any sort. It's illegal. Like full on state sanctioned, or state enforced anti-miscegenation laws, I think is what they're called. It was bad. And in 94, Nelson Mandela kind of came to the forefront and started getting very influential in this sphere, rose to the top of the anti-apartheid movement, and the whole system came crumbling down. They wrote a brand new constitution and created new political parties and everything, and it was beautiful. It was really nice, actually. It was beautiful to see people coming together and working to build a better government and everything. And the hateful, vile racists on the far right, which was the Boers, the white South African extremists. Those were the far right people. And the far left people, the black South Africans, they were all, extremists on both sides is what I'm saying, were infuriated with the results. They were infuriated because the Boers liked how things were with white people in charge. And the black far left extremists were unhappy because they wanted the black people to be in charge rather than kind of a fair, open, as much as possible, free and equal society that they got. So in 94, everything comes crumbling down. They create a new constitution that was reviewed by Ruth Bader Ginsburg and gave her seal of approval, said it's a good constitution. Things have been progressing ever since. That's kind of the history of South Africa for the most part, or their race relations, right? So then I get this email from Heather, and she's going to give me another take on the history and the current state of affairs. As a young child in the early 80s, we were drilled at school for bomb scares every month. They had drills for bomb scares every month, and we had very strict upbringings, i.e. corporal punishment, rulers cross knuckles. That was government school, i.e. government is bad, is the idea here. Okay. When I was 13, I was tear gassed by our old government police in a demonstration against the government rules of keeping races separated. Okay, well, yeah, that's not good. Absolutely. Our part of South Africa, Durban, KZN, was always more liberal, and our schools opened up to black kids in the late 80s. I had the honor of voting for the first time in our democratic elections in 94 and voted IFP, a black liberal party from KZN. So far, I'm all in. Like, this sounds honest. It sounds charitable. It sounds good. I'm down. Couple of weird little things here or there, but okay, I'll overlook it. Whatever. It starts going off the rails in a second. The ANC got power through peaceful negotiations, which had already started behind closed doors during the 80s, i.e., the ANC, which was one of the, I believe, hang on. Let me just verify this information before I say it. Yeah, okay. I wanted to verify, make sure I was correct on this. The ANC is Nelson Mandela's party. They were largely responsible for the fall of apartheid, and they are largely respected across the world for their fair and equal treatment of people, regardless of race, and for their anti-racism platforms, basically. So this is kind of, the first little foot in the door, if you will, that started kind of raising my eyebrows. The ANC got power through peaceful negotiations, which had already started behind closed doors during the 80s. So I guess she's saying that the ANC was not responsible for bringing, about a peaceful situation in South Africa. Our people were so happy in these early years of democracy. We were the rainbow nation. We were a melting pot of races and religions. The Zuma came into power. Please do some research into him, as he is corrupt to the core, but he held all the cards. Let me find out. Okay, Jacob Zuma is widely regarded both domestically and internationally as a deeply corrupt, as both domestically and internationally as deeply corrupt, and that view is supported by extensive evidence, judicial inquiries, and even findings by South Africa's Constitutional Court. So he is a scumbag. And he is a member of the ANC. That is true. Okay? Zuma came into power. He's corrupt to the core, but he held all the cards. Our country's been limping along, breaking more and more each day. We have a thing called cadre deployment, where only the ANC cronies get a government position, regardless of experience. That's not good. Again, you got to take everything in this email with a grain of salt. The ANC are a Marxist liberation party who spew the same rhetoric Marxists doublespeak. Okay. And now, flags are starting to be raised at this moment. Google Bell Pottinger scandal with their propaganda words against white South Africans. I'm sure they got sued. I think the protocols of the Order of Zion. You mean the protocols of the Elders of Zion, but okay. It just kind of starts to go off the rails from here. Like, she points out that there are a lot of social problems. Their electricity grid goes up and down. There's a lot of corruption, and I know that. I know that's true. There's a lot of trouble there. But then it starts to go even more off the rails. When she starts describing what quote unquote black culture is like. I'm not from South Africa. I don't know. Somebody in the comments, please tell me if this is accurate in your view. This isn't even what I'm complaining about, but it definitely raised some red flags for me. As a hairdresser, I've seen waves of people that have left over the years. Early 1999, mostly top 1% wealthy immigrated to Australia, England, and Canada. Next wave was during the Zuma years. Then more middle-class people I knew started to leave. We had COVID, which was disastrous for us working class and poor. We then had the riots when they tried to put Zuma in jail. He's a gangster who tried to start a coup, KOO, okay? The media stifled and downplayed it, but it was the most terrified I've ever been. What do you think's going to start happening? Check our demographics from 94 and now in 2025. Our black population is very young demographic. They're having babies young for that government grant and then leave baby with the poor granny to raise. There are not many family units, i.e. no dads. I mean, this is all the same bullshit that I hear about the black community across the world. And I'll explain why that is in a second. They have dumbed down our education system, they being black people, of course. We used to have things called trade schools. Those collapsed. So now we are sitting with an ever-growing, young, angry, uneducated, unemployable black population who have been promised everything for free for the last 30 years. We have quota systems in place against white males. White males stand no chance. 6% of the population, we create our own jobs. This is all complete bullshit, all the way down. I know that this is bullshit for a fact, but I'm thinking to myself, like, maybe Heather's being propagandized too, like, right? Maybe she's being lied to. So I will try to reanalyze and maybe take another look and see if I've been misled maybe or something. But these things about no dads, about giving their children to their grandmothers to raise, they are poor and they're unemployable because they're uneducated. This shit has been said about the black community across the world since forever. There used to be a joke in the United States. How do you hide money from a black person? You hide it in a book. That same bullshit, racist trash has been passed around since forever. And there's one of two possibilities for that. Okay, there's one of two reasons why it's a trope around the world. Either the black community is just genetically like that, they're just like genetically they have this thing or whatever, or it's just vile racist nonsense. It's one of those two things, right? If you believe that it's genuinely like the black community just has this problem, then you are a Nazi. That's the Nazi belief. Eugenics belief. Race is fictitious, okay? Ethnicity is real. Race is an old 1800s, 1900s concept, and longer, of course, older than that has existed since forever, about how people are separated by God. They were put in separate categories by God so that people would be able to identify them as different and all this other nonsense. If you believe that black people are like this across the world, then you are just espousing Nazi ideology, plain and simple. If you believe that black people are like this in your country uniquely and like nowhere else, maybe put a little bit more thought into it and consider the fact that these exact same accusations pop up everywhere, that there's a white and a black population together. But weirdly, not everywhere where there's just a black population and some other group. Anyway, let's continue. Promised everything for free for the last 30 years. We have a quota system in place. White males stand no chance. I employed 3 black women before COVID. Now, it's becoming clear to me at this point that this person is trying to show me how progressive and left-wing they are. And I think I'm kind of doubting it for that reason, because they're trying to show me. My neighbors are black next door, colored Afrikaans, English, French. We are all a mixed community. Oh, I misread that. Colored Afrikaans, English, French. So she calls them colored. That's a deprecated term in the United States. So actually, it's an offensive term in the United States, but I'll overlook because they have a different culture. But, the bottom line is that this person, it's clear that they've fallen for the propaganda, but they're being honest about it. They're being honest and they're laying out their opinions. So I'm going to honestly think about it. So I reply to the email. I say, the ones that came here are full neo-Nazis, as I showed in the beginning of this. They're full neo-Nazis. They're talking about Jews being blah, 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 whatever. Talking about Jews on Twitter and everything. There is a bizarrely skewed understanding of race and race relations across the country. I mean, can we not agree on that? Really? We can't agree on that? That there's a skewed perception of race across the country? And I said, you should just watch the video. Because she said, I didn't watch the video. Well, you can't talk shit about the video if you didn't watch the video, right? And then she says, oh yes, I forget. I'm a white racist bigot who wants apartheid because I'm white. Really? No, not really. Are you fucking serious? I didn't say any of that shit. I was honestly sympathetic to this and honestly gonna look into all of this. And then you start this shit. Are you fucking serious? Meanwhile, the EFF protests outside a pharmacy, a drugstore, to violently protest about Pantene shampoo because of wording of fine, medium, and coarse hair. They destroyed so many shops and threatened people shopping with death. Meanwhile, one of our ministries said that lightning is racist because more black people die in South Africa by lightning strikes. I'm sorry, you've lost all credibility now, completely. I don't believe a single word out of your mouth. I was being charitable. I was reading honestly. I was trying to understand, okay? You seemed like an honest, trustworthy person in the first 5 sentences of this email chain. What happened? Everything fell apart. Now you're claiming that I'm calling you evil and bigoted because you're white. I'm fucking white. What are you talking about? Oh my God, bro. This is why being militant and angry and vicious is not productive, in my opinion. This exact type of thing here. Because whatever you claim to hate, whether you are that thing, you will be viewed as that thing. You claim to hate racism, you become vile and hateful, you are viewed as racist on the other side. Malcolm X is viewed positively in the black community, not so much in the white community. Malcolm X is viewed as a militant. Martin Luther King Jr., on the other hand, is viewed very positively. Being angry and vile and militant doesn't get you far. Now, in this specific situation, I think I'm actually leaning in opposition to this person. I don't think that I trust what she's saying at all, because I've already seen some things that are complete nonsense outside of being militant for no fucking reason. And, like in the United States, a lot of this stuff has a grain of truth to it. Little Mermaid was played by a black actress. Yeah, okay, I suppose that's true. Yeah, she was. Who fucking cares? What does that have to do with anything? Why are you bent out of shape about it? Some of these stories are true, but completely irrelevant. Like, I guess the Pantene thing was true, is what I'm hearing from people in comments. But I don't see why it matters. Like, who cares? It feels like this is a culture war issue, is what it is. And this is what reactionaries do, left and right. Reactionaries start culture war nonsense with people. They always try to start shit over something stupid and pointless. In this case, is the Pantene thing. That's a stupid, pointless thing to be pissed off about. The right does it disproportionately in the United States. Completely out of control. And I can see that, like, it's way too common in South Africa, too. Anyway, let's keep reading here. Meanwhile, one of our ministers said that lightning is racist because more black people die in South Africa. Yeah, I mean, I can see somebody saying... first of all, one of our ministers, who is this minister? What are they a minister of? How long have they been preaching? Do they have any kind of political relevance? What's their political position? Like, I'm trying to understand who the fuck this minister is. First of all, is he representative of a large group of people is my real question. I want to know if he's just some lone nutcase that says stupid shit all the time, or if he represents, like, the broader view on race, first. And second, you can say that lightning has racist outcomes. That's true. Lightning can have racist outcomes. Obviously, it's not like, there's no sentience to the lightning, and it's not targeting people because it fucking hates black people or something. That's not happening. Obviously, everybody knows that. But it can have racist outcomes. COVID had racist outcomes. And the reason that COVID had racist outcomes is because a disproportionate number of Black people in the United States work service jobs, like work Burger King, frontline places, and they don't have an option of staying home because they work in an office, for example, like a lot of the white community in the US does. COVID had racist outcomes as a result of the systemic racist culture in the United States. Now, conservatives like to blame that on Black people, say they're in those bad service jobs, those entry-level service jobs their entire lives because fill-in reason here, because their dads weren't there when they were little, they were raised by their grandparents, they don't have education, all the same stupid shit that I heard from this email right here, that I hear from every country around the world about Black people who have a race problem, but not the ones that don't. You can blame it all you want on that. That's what conservatives tend to do. But the real answer is that there's racial tension in your country. Bottom line. That's it. There's racial tension. Why can't you just admit that there's racial tension? Of course there is. And why can't you admit that there's an upper class and a lower class in all societies? That's how fucking societies work. There are people that have more money, people that have less money. So if there's racial tension, i.e. there's strife and hate and tension around this one specific characteristic, and there are multiple classes in society, why the fuck wouldn't you think that one group is being systemically disadvantaged? Anyway, this bit about lightning strikes, I have no idea what the context was. I don't even know who the fuck this person was, but I'm just shooting it out there. If anybody's interested, maybe, possibly, it could have been, just tossing it out there, that they were saying that lightning disproportionately strikes members of the Black community, and that is an example of systemic racism that exists. Not lightning being racist, but Black people being in positions like ditch diggers, construction workers, where they're outside more often rather than at good paying office jobs, and more prone to be struck by lightning as a result. It's probably an example of systemic racism where there isn't a racist actor anywhere in the chain, but there are still racist outcomes. That's what I would guess if I had to. You are your own worst enemy, Heather. I don't know if you are actually left-wing. I'm going to say no, based on all of the shit that you spewed after our first email. But assuming that you are your own worst enemy. You are convincing people of the exact opposite of your position because you can't just be a normal fucking human being and have a normal conversation and be honest about shit. You have to start screaming at people and accusing them of calling you racist. What is wrong with you? Really? Let's finish the email, shall we? Shame, Owen. Put your politics aside. See the world. Come stay here with me for a week with pleasure. XXX. See us. Not color and propaganda. Google Bell Pottinger, UK, with South Africa scandal. They made new word salad, anti-white buzzwords, paid for by ANC, and got exposed, just like Protocols of the Elders of Zion. She's probably referencing that because that's an example of a clear example of anti-Jewish propaganda. We white 6% South Africans have been made to look like the evil others you always normally question in your comments. Please watch our wonderful South African podcasters. Start with Bonsai Shongwei. He's actually a Black pastor, so killing two birds with one stone. Lots of love. Heather, thank you. I appreciate that. You're your own worst enemy, okay? Now, let me give you an actual analysis of what's happening. Hold on. I gotta find this one. I covered the clip last time. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing. I just wanna give you a little glimpse into it. Here's the video I was looking for. This explains what the demographics are and have been in South Africa for a while now.
This is for the Americans. If you're not an American, feel free to watch, but please try and get it to the Americans. My name is Bianca van Wyk, born in South Africa, live in South Africa. Today you will be welcoming the so-called white Afrikaans refugees. They are there based on an offer made to them.
Yeah, this is a picture of the refugees showing up in the United States. Quote unquote refugees. Look, they've got pillows with them. They rode in on a plane with like suitcases, and they got nice clean clothes. You guys ever seen what a refugee looks like coming over the border or like applying for asylum or something in the United States? You ever seen that shit? Do you know what that looks like? Not this, I'll tell you that much. They're run down, they're destitute, they have literally nothing but the clothes on their backs. They're dirty because they've been walking through who knows what areas, what deserts, what dangerous spots to reach a UN refugee center. And they're being shipped back, and white South Africans with neck pillows flown in on our dime.
Which I must say was informed by disinformation about South Africa. Now, I've seen a lot of takes on who Americans think they are receiving. Okay, you are not getting successful, professional, white, middle class South Africans that are fleeing South Africa. The people you are getting are the people that believe that there is discrimination against them based on their race. Keep in mind, we live in the most unequal country in the world. We have, for instance, 70% of agricultural land and agricultural holdings are owned.
White South Africans make up 8.1% of the population, is the text here. And she points out 70% of the holdings, hold on,
owned by white South Africans. 62 to
wait, sorry.
Live in the most unequal country in the world. We have, for instance, 70% of agricultural land and agricultural holdings are owned by white South Africans. 62 to 68% of top leadership positions in corporate are filled by white males. There is a huge salary disparity between white South Africans and the rest of the population. And there are a number of other indicators which shows you that this story of discrimination based on race is false.
And I'm not just taking her word for this. I know this for a fact because I've looked these numbers up myself. When Elon Musk's whole like image started to crumble, I looked it up. I wanted to understand South Africa. What she's telling us is 100% accurate.
Another thing that I wanted to say is that you will get certain so-called refugees that have experienced crime. However, in South Africa, no one is exempt. These people that you are welcoming assume because they're white, they should not experience crime. The people most affected by crime in South Africa happen to be Black people that live in poverty. So as you open your doors and welcome people, and you're going to get a lot of information and disinformation from these people, please do keep that in mind. Oh, I also would like to say all the best and good luck to the Americans.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that. We're going to need it. Anyway, the point is, I don't know if Heather seemed very nice, but then just fucking flipped on a dime out of nowhere. I was being nice too. I was being charitable and just trying to understand. And just out of nowhere, loses it. Tell me what you think about it in the comments. I think it's clear as day that I think that Heather's being propagandized too heavily, like mad. I'll give you this. Zuma is a piece of shit. That's what I've discovered. Yes, I agree 100%. Okay. Pretty much everything else you said was nonsense about race relations there. Just take a closer look, Heather. I'm begging you. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. And especially if you're a South African, I want to hear your thoughts on this.